Afternoon, everyone. Chris Berryman here, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. Here's my great friend and mentor and partner, Carla Fedigan. We're doing Humanity Happy Hour today, and welcome everyone to our Bringing Humanity Together live stream. Once again, this is one of the open forums under the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella, where people can discuss topics related to the workplace and humanity in the workplace in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues that are out there facing people, because it is our goal to both work with employers and employees to bring humanity back into the workforce. And as always, we'll be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Feel free to invite your friends, coworkers, dogs, cats, you name it. Bring your furry babies. We would love to have them on the show too, as well. And as you see today, Carla Fedigan will be our host today. And remember, every Tuesday, Sharon Care with Sandy Chernoff. I host Conversations for Humanity on Wednesday. And Thursdays, as always, Carla Fedigan. And as you jump on, whether you're on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook business page, please, in the chat or in the comment section of each platform, please let us know where you're actually watching from, because we would love to reach out and have a great and engaging conversation with you, and also whether to be about topics, comments, questions, all that kind of stuff. We would like to have that conversation with you. And if you're watching this on the replay, please use the hashtag replay and let us know also where you're watching from. And just to let you guys know, we can have up to 10 people on the call at one given time. So if you'd like to join, I will put the link up on the screen here shortly and put it on the comment section of LinkedIn Live. So if you guys are watching us, that will be the link so you can be able to get on the call with us. So how are you doing today, Miss Carla?
Hey, I'm doing good. I've got 2 fur babies at my feet.
Fur babies, yes, we'll take the fur babies. And you had another one the other day, Patrick, so bring the fur baby too.
Bring the fur babies. I've got my 2.
I'm all about fur babies.
Yeah. I actually got it from my desk, and they were thinking, oh, she's making a run for the kitchen. I wonder if there's any food involved. And I go, nope, we're going outside before I get on a call. So
I know the feeling. I just got in from outside. It's hot as hell out there.
It's hot here too in Georgia.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad one this summer. And we aren't even in the midst of it either.
Radar and see if it's going to rain this afternoon. We really need to cut our backyard, but it's been raining every afternoon, so we haven't been able to do it. So maybe today. So I thought that we would talk today about, I found a great article by John C. Maxwell. It was written during the election, and even though it was written during that time frame, I think that it's very apropos to today.
Be right back, Lily.
And I thought that we would look at the 4 signs of a leader of hope, since we're talking about hope this week.
Nice.
And one of the things he says is that we need leaders of hope that build bridges, not destroy bridges along the way. And he talked about how back in 2020, or a year ago, that we were in a period of sadness. And I think in a lot of respects, we still are. Whether it be what happened in 2020, COVID, everything else, the world's under a lot of stress right now. And I think that dark period that he talks about still holds true today. He talks about how we need to have leaders that are pushing people to get to be together and not apart. That a lot of leaders, and I'm not saying every work situation is like that, but there are situations in leadership, and we all can come up with our own examples of that, where the leaders are dividing everybody as opposed to bringing everybody together. They're
Hi.
Hey, Lisa. more proactive in fear and than in hope. And so, or they're instilling fear of, I'm the boss, you do as I say, and it's going to be this way, as opposed to instilling hope in everybody that's working there. And he also said that leaders who, and a lot of leaders are doing absolutely nothing. They sink back, they allow that darkness to occur. They don't know how to handle it, so they do absolutely nothing.
That means they're not a leader.
Bringing people together and being that light. So John C. Maxwell feels like that time of darkness can be changed, and that we can be that change. We can be that light in the darkness to change the way that people are thinking, and to change the way that leadership is dealing with what's going on in the workplace, how we're looking at bringing people together rather than dividing people, how we ignite that hope in the world that people are looking for these days. So he talked about what does that hope, leaders of hope, look like, and he broke it down into 4 individual categories. And I thought I'd let you all know what the 4 are, and then we can kind of develop our conversation around that. The first one he said is a leader of hope digs for gold where a lot of other people dig for dirt. He said divisive leaders aren't afraid to tear down what's going on, to be able to have that power and allow that fear to come in. It's being divisive to have that control. Let's pit everybody against one another. And I've been in work situations like that. Whereas a hope leader is going to look for the good in everybody and instill hope. They're going to believe in the best of everyone, and they're going to want to nourish the best of everybody in the workplace. He also talks about live out good values while others live out of good values, as opposed to living out of emotions. And he describes this as divisive leaders depend on emotion. Fear is a very good one to think of. They create instability that leads to uncertainty, that amplifies the chaos in the workplace, and in turn they have power. And that's all they're looking for, is the power. Whereas a hope leader is going to lead by good values. They're going to have good values that never change. They're consistent. They offer stability in the workplace, and they create confidence in the workplace.
Yeah.
So you can see just in that one comparison of what a big difference that would make in the workplace, to have somebody that's got a hope mentality, sense of leadership. And the third thing he talks about is they build bridges. The divisive people will basically throw anybody and everybody under the bus to get what they want. Whereas people that and burn their bridges along the way, whereas people that lead from a sense of hope leadership will actually keep those bridges, maintain them, but also build more bridges along the way. And then the last thing he talks about is they tell the truth. Divisive people will manipulate the truth. They'll have half-truths. They'll make the story the way that they want it to be. They'll tell you half of the information. They'll lie, cheat, and steal. That's that negativity that's in the workplace, whereas a hope leader will always stand for truth. They'll always have the facts out there. They'll give you the whole story. They'll openly address issues. They'll create a hopeful way forward for the organization, and everyone will want to follow that pathway because they do see the hope, and they consistently believe in the truth. And I can't read my own I can't read my own writing here. Oh, and through that truth, they're going to restore belief in the future for people and instill hope in people. I thought that those were very, very powerful comparisons that he makes, and that brings up a whole lot of different situations. But he also talked about how it's great to be we talked about this yesterday. It's great to be optimistic and have optimism and feel good, but you have to take action and be that light and lead by example to give hope to people.
Yes.
And Carla, I think a lot of the comparisons that you talked about that were in the book or from John C. Maxwell are very similar to manager versus leader, right? Obviously, not all managers have those attributes, the negative ones, but a true leader is going to build bridges, not break them down, because they understand that it takes the team to get things done, and not, it's so I think a lot of those comparisons were very similar to when you see a comparison from a manager to a leader versus a leader.
Yeah, well, you can certainly see that in a lot of different encounters that you have, not only just in the workplace, but in your daily encounters that you have, and different people that you deal with, and different situations that you deal with.
Exactly.
And different events going on in the world these days.
Exactly. You can even see that in the top end of our government.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, not to go down the rabbit hole, but I mean, just for an example, look at the news. The people from Cuba have wanted to be free for years. They're driving cars from the 1950s. I remember when I used to go to medical missions in Haiti, we used to have physician interns that would come over to Haiti, which is a third world country, that said, believe it or not, they actually have better health care in Haiti than they did in Cuba. So they would come over to Haiti, to these tiny villages where the hospital was probably no bigger than a McDonald's, and give health care with nothing to work with. We had more in our clinic than they had in the hospital.
Wow. So,
these people want freedom in how they can actually get videos of them chanting, that they want freedom in their country, and they actually got out of the country. It's amazing to me. But the news will tell you that what was it? What was the spin on it that they were? Oh, well, they want freedom because of COVID. No, they've been wanting to be free for decades.
Everyone's using COVID as an excuse for things not getting done nowadays. It just seems like it doesn't matter where you go. In the grocery store, whatever, it's because of COVID. Well, come on. I understand that certain things have to change because of the pandemic, but it shouldn't be used as an excuse because things are not happening the way that they should.
Well, in some regards, there is an impact on that. In fact, I remember a year and a half ago, before this was like right after early 2020, I guess, there was someone I had met on LinkedIn that was doing something with import sales or something like that. I can't remember what it was he called it. And he said that he was having a hard time getting products out of China and to sell. And I was like, this is before I really knew anything about COVID and what was going on. But it dawned on me how it affects, supply chains and moving product and sales and stocking and all that kind of stuff. And there is, to some degree, a trickle-down effect. But it's not everywhere.
Right.
So what's your thought, Chris?
Well, it goes to right back into that book from John C. Maxwell when he says that the biggest myth of basically, I truly believe, is that we equate leadership and management to be one and the same, the two polar opposites of the spectrum. They're absolutely not there. And when you bring in the hope leader dynamic and start leading with hope and leading by permission versus position and really learning the awareness factor of every person in that organization and get to know them on a real deep, meaningful human level, it's like what they like he says all the time. Don't make them come to where you're at. Go to where they're at. And if you could do that, not only can you build a bridge, you can literally move mountains. And I truly believe in that.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Patrick?
Well, here's what I did ahead of this call. You mentioned, because we talked earlier,
Yeah.
and you said the 4 signs of hope leadership, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write down what I think are the 4 primary things that I think would be behind hope leadership. So, first one, empathy. Because if you don't have empathy, not empathy, empathy, you're not going to have hope. You have to be realistic as a leader. You have to be foundational, and you have to be value added.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of what you were writing and bringing up for John C. Maxwell, there's a lot of correlation between those two things. So it's kind of an interesting exercise to see where I stood versus John C. Maxwell by doing that exercise.
I lost my pen somewhere. So that was empathy?
Empathy, realistic.
Being realistic?
Yeah. It goes back to the whole truth thing. You know, if you're lying, it ain't gonna work. Foundational, because in order to build bridges, you have to have a foundation first.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And then you
You
have to be
build
valuable.
a foundation on trust.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, a lot of those are based off of, if you don't have the foundation in place, you're not going to construct a darn thing. You know, whether it be hope, whether it be faith, it doesn't matter what it is. And then be value added, because that goes back to those managers that sit there. And I am a true believer their emotions are like used toilet paper, because emotions are personal to you, not me. Don't push your emotions on me, because they're not mine. Those are yours. You deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the problem, is people allow their emotions, and they allow the emotions to supersede the logic of the whole situation, and then it just causes everything to go south. So, and of course, those were my 4, and of course, I had to go further, because now I got 2 more. They have to have humor. I think it's very important for you to have humor and steadfastness. You got to stay to your guns.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are my 6. I went further. I got
Okay.
extra credit.
So I got
That's good.
empathy, being realistic, foundational, emotions.
No emotions. Get the emotions out of it.
No emotion.
Yeah, no emotions. I mean,
What was 5?
Let's see. It was empathy, realistic, steadfastness, humor, foundational, value added.
Steadfastness.
Yeah.
And see, Patrick, when you get to the foundational part, it goes right back to what John C. Maxwell says in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Law number 14, the law of solid ground. Mm-hmm. Solid ground means that
You
very
have a memorized, Chris?
Say that again?
You have a memorized?
He's got them posted on his wall.
No, I remember a lot of them. I do, because like I said, number 1 is the law of the lid. When it comes to our levels of leadership, there's a lid to our leadership. So law number 1 is the law of the lid.
John would be really impressed.
That he is. John Maxwell, sir, if you'd like to join us on one of our calls, we would love to have you. Open invitation to you, Mr. Maxwell. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be
yes,
great.
it would. Yes, it would.
Yeah. No, you do have to keep your emotion out of it, because, that that doesn't get you anywhere.
Exactly. You gotta,
Ever say, if a woman's upset, the worst thing to say to her is, well, you don't have to get all upset about it. And they're like, I'm allowed to.
Right.
And I'm not that way. I'm not super emotional. I mean, I can get fired up about something, but I don't get emotional about it. I can get pissed off about something,
Right.
but I don't get
that's an emotion.
and tearful, and no,
Right.
I get passionate.
Well,
Oh.
the way I view that, Carla, when it comes to the emotional component of it, for me, I have to recognize that emotion is there. So if I can recognize the emotion and understand why it's there and what's fueling that emotion, I can recognize it, turn it in from a negative to a positive, and do it from that kind of framework and outward kind of dynamic. Because if you internalize it to such a degree that it creates that negative energy and that negative mindset and everything like that, then your very emotion is going to be it's like, I'll go back to Star Wars yet again because I love Star Wars so much. It's like if you go down the dark path forever, it will dominate your destiny. You don't want to go down that dark path. So you got to realize where you want to go and what you want to do and channel that into such a way that even that negative energy can be used in a positive light if you allow it to occur for you in that way.
Yeah. Well, people that are divisive want that darkness because it gives them power. And if you choose that you're not going to go down that path, or you're not going to play someone's game that's out to sabotage what you're doing at work or whatever because they're jealous because you're actually doing your job, it drives them crazy because you're not going to contribute to that.
Well, and the other thing, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought up the word power, because going back to speaking about emotions earlier, when I'm faced with an emotional situation where the emotion is is owned by the other person, and I have to address it, I take the standpoint of, if I address this emotion, does it give them power over me? I don't want to lose that power.
Like saying, I realize you're upset.
Yeah. Well, no, just giving into it.
I mean, how would you give that up to somebody? Ownership of.
Well, basically, if by acknowledging it, you're giving up power. So it's a power dynamic. Because if somebody's so emotional that they're irrational, I'm not going to address it. Because if I do, that gives them power, and it gives them the ability to take that emotion further, and it get deeper, and it get uglier, and it get nastier. So you just kind of have to walk away from those, So that's why. I know you're taking notes of my 6 things earlier. Now I got number 7, composure.
Oh God, yeah, 7. Okay.
No, we're adding
composure.
to it.
Yes, composure, very important.
Composure.
Yes.
Composure is important, and sometimes I think when you're dealing with someone who is full of emotion and is trying to take the power of the situation with their emotion, the best way to handle that, at least in some cases, is to say, I understand how you feel, but we need to be able to talk about this and work through this to find a solution, rather than just sit here. If someone's yelling at you, sometimes the best thing to do is just to say, you can leave, and when you're ready to talk about this calmly, then we can sit down and talk and try to find a solution to this. But it depends on the situation too. Sometimes people just need to vent. However, once they're at a point where they're not listening to you, they're not trying to have a conversation, trying to work through something. And I'm sure we've all dealt with individuals that have those types of ways that they handle things. Sometimes you just have to end the conversation. And maybe, Patrick, that's what you're talking about. You just end the conversation. You don't lose your composure in the situation, because as soon as you give into it and start yelling back, that's when you've lost the power. So if you can calmly talk to them or get to a solution by working together. Otherwise, you have to end the conversation possibly because nothing is happening except for they're just spewing words and nothing's being accomplished. Yes.
Okay,
Well,
so
recognizing that they're upset in a particular situation, say you're in customer service and you have a customer that's upset, recognizing it can be a diffusing tool as well to say, I understand you're upset. I'm wanting to find a solution for you.
heck, that's
Exactly. Help me
That's half
understand.
an apology right there, just as acknowledging it, to rectify the situation. So actually, as we were talking, I wrote down a statement. Logic will always supersede emotion if rationality exists.
That's a good one.
If rationality doesn't exist, then nothing happens other than
walk away, run.
Other than you have to either leave or they have to leave until there can be some calmness and
or call your mama. She'll tell you what to do.
Yeah, call your mama. She'll always be good. That's
right. Exactly.
Well, one of the jobs that I had, I also did OSHA safety. One of the topics that we talked about was patient complaints and things like that. And I have been a victim of somebody standing at the counter yelling at me. And, I'd say, I understand that you're upset. Let me see what I can do for you. And actually, have a seat. Let me see what I can do for you. And just doing that will help diffuse the situation. So you can go back and take a big deep breath and get support,
Gain your composure.
Yeah, gain your composure because you're like this the whole time, But, that is a diffusing tool. But it doesn't give them power. I mean,
no.
When you're in customer service, you're wanting to find a solution for them. Because you want them to leave with, like Sandy says, they're going to remember their last encounter with you. And you want to make sure that it's a good one, the best you can. Now, you're not going to give in to everybody, but.
And you can't let people treat you disrespectfully either. No. if they're getting to a point where, I had situations where managers, would come into my office as an HR manager. Other managers may come into my office and, if they're disrespectful, I don't get into a conversation with them. I let them know right away. I will not allow you to treat me this way or behave in this manner. When you're ready to calm down and discuss things so that we can work together for a solution, then I will be happy to work with you. But you can't, even a customer, you can't let them disrespect you or whatnot. But yeah, obviously letting them know that you want to work on a solution, I think is the best way to handle it. But you got to stand firm if they're being disrespectful.
Yeah. Yeah. As they're yelling at you going, I am calm. You haven't seen me hot yet.
Right. I'm not yelling, but I am.
Get on the side, man. I'll show you.
I've seen enough.
Going back to our 7 tenets.
Okay.
I'll call them 7 tenets, foundational. If you are very clear up front with people as to what you will handle, what you won't, you can avoid a lot of those situations. Yeah. And I think that figures into this as well. Is make sure that's part of leadership. Leadership is creating an environment. That's what I learned in my master's program. It's creating an environment. And if you are foundational in the way you create your environment, it's very clear as to what you will handle and what you will take, so that when problems occur, they know what the outcome will be.
Exactly. And see, what I've learned from the many number of years I've been working, whether it be in restaurant, retail, wherever I've been at, I've always taken it from this premise and mindset and state of being, to be honest with you, is when you get into a conversation with somebody, whether it be on the phone, chat, email, whatever, or even in person, you want to go into it knowing that you want to, on the other side of it, leave them better from when you came into that very conversation. So if they're on the negative, you want to flip that script to such a degree that it becomes a net positive, not a net negative. You leave them better and they have a better taste in their mouth, better experience, better everything. And if you can do that and you flip it 180 degrees the opposite direction, that bodes well every which way you can take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of those interactions, as they play out with, resolving conflict or whatnot, building that relationship with people around you can help in those situations. Just having that, and when you say foundation, that's what I think of in a foundation. So as you build relationships with people that you work with, interact with, the foundation you build in that relationship can help you work through issues in positive ways. And so I think that's why I feel it's important as a leader in leadership, it's important to have those foundations.
Mm-hmm. Well, positivity will all, and, giving hope will always win in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can't necessarily get people to change, but you can lead by example.
Well, and I think, Carla, we've talked about this in one of our streams before, as far as influence goes or control. Our circle of control really centers around ourselves. So when a situation is presented to you, whether it be a personal or professional situation, the only thing we can control is ourselves. So how we respond to a situation can really make it or break it. It can either go north or south as far as whether it's a positive or negative interaction in the end, because it's how we respond to a situation. And so if we can all lead with hope in that realm of what we're talking about, it can only make things better, and it can leave an individual with, hey, that wasn't so bad, and we were able to work through an issue or whatever it is. And so again, yeah, it's all about how we contribute and how the way we take it, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah, and Lisa, on that point, about how we show up to others. How do we literally show up to others, again, from their model of the world? Because we can't be in their world unless we are willing to seek that understanding of where they're coming from. Because if they see us in a negative light, that's all they're going to see is that negativity. But if they can see us in a positive light and a hopeful standpoint and a state of being, and they can literally, it's tangible to them, that they know it, then that's the way we can move forward, because the state of being can really be felt throughout. It's just like when you go into a grocery store, phone store, whatever. I mean, you can literally feel it, how either the negativity is there or the positivity is there. It's something, it's almost like the force. The force flows through you in that way. It's there. So how do we change that dynamic that when that force goes throughout the organization in such a way that it breeds hope, breeds positivity, breeds possibility? And if we all interconnect with that and move that forward, I dare to say, what can we not accomplish? What can we not do if we just allow those state of beings to be there for what it is versus what it isn't there?
Exactly. I think if we're always looking for the good in people, I mean, you go to the grocery store and you go to the cashier, if you say, hi, how are you? Or you having a great day, that usually prompts a small discussion or a smile from somebody. And so I think we can change ourselves and how we interact in the world. If we go in there and walk through the line and we're just grumpy, we're probably going to get a grump back.
I mean, a grumpy lemon.
Do every time I go in a grocery store, I don't care who it is, I always talk to the person who's checking me out, and I always make sure they laugh before I leave. If they don't laugh before I leave, I have not accomplished my goal. Because I'm just goofball, and I just want to have fun. I want to leave these little droplets of humor all throughout the day that's going to make people smile. And that makes me feel good at the end of the day. But going back to what you were talking about earlier, a lot of creating that environment is based on the big P, perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we,
Perceptions,
what those perceptions that we create and we produce, that we put out there, that sets the stage. That's part of the foundation of whether you're going
Exactly.
to be great or you're good in the future or not. Why do I feel like we're about to write a book?
That sounds good to
swear to
me.
That's
God,
what
I think we're going to write
I
a
know
book.
that. Yes, it
I'm
will.
in.
Count me
I'm
in.
all in.
Yes.
I have always wanted to write a book, and I feel like
Well, you got 7 chapters today.
I do.
It's already
Link to
written.
our
It's there.
website. Yep.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, what Chris is talking about goes back to what Patrick was talking about, having empathy and understanding where people are coming from. And I think that any organization that is blessed like we are to have everybody thinking alike and being on the same page and being that light of hope and not being decisive. Anybody that's in an organization like that, once you've been on the other side and then you experience what it's like to work with a group of people that is so united, it's like, I don't ever want to go back to that situation again. You're truly blessed by what you have.
Yes.
Right.
And I think the people around you are going to remember you for the empathy that you had in just your general interactions. I mean, take the example of going to the grocery store. You know, you walk through the line or whatever, and you smile and you say hi, or you make them laugh like Patrick does. I wish I was funny enough to make people laugh. But anyway.
Sure you are, Lisa.
You know what the secret is? You know what the secret is? Self-deprecation. I make fun of myself all throughout the day, and people freaking love it. I don't know why.
Oh, I have no problem with
that. Because I mean, if you're fun with yourself, but you know, droplets of hope. I'm leaving droplets of hope. There's next chapter.
Right.
It's chapter 8.
Exactly. Exactly. And people are going to remember you for that. They're going to remember you for the smile or the laugh or whatever.
I walk into a place and it lights up because I walk in.
Oh, I
Because they
bet.
do remember me
Well,
every
I don't
time.
doubt that at all.
That's
I
right.
don't doubt that at all. I'm usually checking the people out going, who do I know? Who do I know? Do I know that, you know?
So you duck behind a counter or something?
But once I know those people, I'm like you. Hey, it's party time. Yeah, no, you just have to lead people better. Even just saying, hey, how was your day?
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of just say, oh, have a nice day, you know?
Exactly.
Asking them how their day is or how's it going.
Because people do want to share.
Mm-hmm.
People overshare sometimes, but they do want to share, you know? And the chances are that's probably the first conversation they've had probably in the 3 hours.
Right.
Wow.
And that's bad.
Right.
Think about it. That's bad.
I went to Walmart the other day and I do this online grocery thing and I pick it up and the people load it in my car and everything. And the kid that was loading my groceries, I got into a conversation with him and learned, you know, that he took his dad out for Father's Day and he had to use an attendance point to call in for that day. So just a little interaction of, you know, I said, hello, how was your day? And it led into, like I said, it led into this. And so, yeah, he probably doesn't interact with a lot of people because of the job that he does. And so I think he was pleasantly surprised that I struck up a conversation with him. And so, again, just learning about him in general. And he was happy to share with me, you know, that, hey, you know, I wanted to take the time for my dad and that's what happened, you know.
Right.
So,
you know, and go ahead.
I will let this quote just say it all when it comes to hope. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Can't argue with that.
yes.
Yep.
And that's what we have to do. To me, ladies and gentlemen, it's about the little things. The little things add up.
Yep.
The little things build momentum. The little things actually create that value to such an extent that when people really know that you care about them, and it's about the
Mm-hmm.
human development factor, about being human, just being who we are. Like I said, we can move mountains, we can build bridges, we can literally build the superhighway for humanity. It's there. We just have to do the little things that will lead to the bigger things.
Right.
Well, those bigger things can come, not necessarily that you're wanting to do those bigger things, but like Patrick said, you're putting those droplets of hope out. You're wanting to leave people better. And when you care about people first and you leave them better, greater things are going to come. It shouldn't be the opposite way around, is that I'm looking for X outcome, so I'm going to be nice to this person here to get this outcome that I want.
Mhm.
You treat everybody nicely.
Right.
And then with that, good things will come.
Right.
Right.
And consistency is key.
Okay.
Well, I think that comment just goes back to building the foundation, right? Building the
Yep.
foundation of your relationships around you and the people you're involved with and the things that you're involved with. You have to build those relationships in a positive way. Otherwise, there is no foundation.
Mm-hmm. I remember I used to work with a lot of people who they were nurses, and like they didn't know the people that worked in the business office. They didn't know the people that worked in check-in or check-out. They didn't know the people in the OR, you know? And it's like,
Mhm.
we're a big organization. You want to get to know people.
Yeah.
You can meet, meet people and have a lot of fun that way,
Mhm.
Everybody.
Exactly. I think people get caught up in their day to day and being in a rush and a hurry to get things done and get home. And I think that's the biggest issue out there today, is that we don't take the time to focus on our relationships a lot of
Or
times.
we're on these too much.
Or that, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're in the
Exactly.
grocery store line like this, checking out.
Not Sandy though.
Right. It's like
We're not conversing with anybody.
This is their boyfriend.
Right. Right. Everyone is tied to their phone. Well,
Yep.
the majority of the people.
Yeah.
And talking
It
about
has
that,
its purpose. I mean, I use mine a lot for business, but
Right.
I do not go through the grocery store line with it. at
right?
all.
Yeah,
No.
I don't.
Right.
Mm-mm. No.
Technology has a lot to do. It has an impact on hope. Maybe that's another discussion topic.
Well, there's a lot of positive things, but I think, if you look at especially the younger kids and the younger generations, they do everything on their phone, and it's not all bad, but it's the focus on relationships isn't there like it was. And I think there's a commercial out there, and I think it's a life insurance or a auto insurance commercial, I think, if I remember. But it's this 30 something talking about how her parents never get out. They're not on Facebook or on social media, so they don't have any friends, right? No friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
And the whole commercial is about how they don't socialize enough, but they're out riding their bike, they're out doing things. And so it's just this woman's perspective that they're not on Facebook or social media, so they're not social enough, but they're out doing things. And so I think that's a lot of a disconnect that we have in our society today, is that everything is so focused on social media. Not that social media doesn't have its positives, but
Mm-hmm.
we're so focused on the social media, how many friends we have on Facebook, how many friends do we have where we go do things with.
Well, a lot of people are stuck on those vanity metrics of how many followers do I have? How many likes do I have? How many hearts do I have? How many people messaged me today?
Right. And so again, the focus should be on the relationships that we have with people.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't until COVID came along that I actually saw more people in my neighborhood than ever before. And I've been here almost 5 years. Because
Exactly.
people didn't have anything to do, so they got out and they walked, and you know, we would walk too. And it was during the month when our gym was closed, and now we still walk. But we've gotten to know a lot of our neighbors.
Right. Exactly.
People don't know their neighbors anymore.
And in the 1970s or whatever, everybody knew their neighbors, right? It was a big thing to talk to your neighbor or whatever. But as you know, the 80s, 90s, and so on, it got even less and less over time. And so this last year, people, like you said, started meeting their neighbors because they were home or they had to rely on their neighbor for something. You know, they were talking about kids and education, and they were going to form these, you know, neighborhood education programs because some people still had to go to work, but other people were home and they could be the teacher or whatever to help the kids in the neighborhood. And they said, I read that they had these programs years ago, you know, where they would have community programs where the neighbors would all get together and all the kids would go to this one neighbors or these two neighbors, and they would help the other neighbors in their area with their kids while the other people worked or whatever. And so it was just interesting to see how things kind of reverted back to the way we used to do some things.
Well, that went from neighbors helping neighbors to in-home daycare to corporate run daycare to after school programs. And then all of a sudden when COVID hit, there were all these kids that had nowhere to go, and a lot of parents had to leave their jobs.
That too, yeah.
But when I was growing up, my mom, you know, if somebody new they had like they had like a garden club, which is kind of like what we call a homeowners association now, you know, but I think maybe the dues were like $20, and it was almost like a sunshine club where it paid for flowers for somebody that was in the hospital or something like that, or, you know, something easy. But I mean, if people were sick, people got together, they made meals for people, they put them, you know, gave them stuff for their freezer. Someone moved into the neighborhood, you made cookies or a cake, and you went to meet them. And people don't do that anymore.
Right, exactly. You know, it doesn't happen like that at all. And and so again, I believe that the focus needs to get back to that kind of thing where we're focusing on our relationships in the world. And because you go throughout, you know, years, you don't meet your neighbor until something like COVID happens.
Or have a block party. You know, if you live in a neighborhood, Patrick, I know you don't live in a neighborhood. Have a block party. You know,
I have a block party with my cow.
With 26.
I was just going to say that.
I haven't even told that story to the rest of you guys yet, but I'll tell you that's for later. What was my point? Crap. Go ahead. I'll think of it. I forgot what it was.
Well. Here's a comment from.
I'm sorry. Sorry. We have to keep in mind, though, the definition of society has changed. Just like you guys said earlier, in the 70s, we all got out into our yards. We partied with each other because we didn't have our cell phone. We didn't have our technology. We didn't have the vapes. We didn't have all that crap, you know. But the reality is that is in our world today, and it has changed the definition of society. And I think we have to keep in mind we have to kind of stay within that because we can't change society. We don't have that much power, but as long as we stay within that definition, we can succeed. We can get that message out there.
Right. Well, things that are coming up now is people are starting neighborhood groups on Facebook or online, and they're trying to connect people through these groups, which is not a bad way to go. It's still, like you said, Patrick, staying in line with how our society is today, but it's still trying to build that community of, you know, okay, these are all your neighbors. And, you know, we just recently got our neighbor's phone number, which we didn't even know our neighbors until this COVID thing hit. So the same thing happened, like Carla was mentioning here. We knew of them, we met them, but we've never really talked to them and during the whole COVID shutdown, we ended up talking to them a little more and getting their phone numbers. And so now we can call each other if something comes up or whatever. And so it's kind of nice to have, because if we want to go away for the weekend, we know that if something weird pops up here, they're going to call us.
Yep.
We never had that before. So, I mean, those are things you can do for your neighbors that, you know, you can, again, that you couldn't do if you don't know them. So it's like you said, Patrick, you can't change society in general, but you can work within the parameters that you have and you can try to ignite change that way.
Yeah.
Well,
even if it's just a little bit.
You know, well, like,
Right.
I had a girl that lived down the street from me. We used to work together, and I rarely see her anymore. And even though I'm out, but she sent me a text message a couple of weeks ago saying that there was some strange, looked like a homeless guy walking around through the neighborhood, and a couple of people told him he needed to move along. And they were saying that he was hanging out at this down in some woods. There's what used to be a fort, and I said, well, and I told Heather, I said, well, I remember last winter I saw somebody down there, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I was walking the dogs, but she said, well, her son and another kid had built a fort down there, but they thought that they had taken it down, and I said, well, as far as I know, it's still there, but for the longest time, I was going to set up a next door app for the people in my neighborhood. And a situation like that was something to where, okay, I'm going to do it. And I took action on it. And it's brought a lot of neighbors together. And even though people aren't, you know, I don't necessarily know anybody, luckily the way that the app is set up, the people that I can see on the map who is not connected. And luckily, they finally have the app set up to where they will automatically email up to 100 people. And so they're emailing all the other people in the neighborhood to get them to join the Nextdoor app, to where we can all kind of connect and get to know each other, share referrals. Hey, I'm looking for a carpet cleaner or something like that. Anybody can recommend anybody, you know. And
Right.
You know, my neighbors talk about when the neighborhood first came into being back in like 2001. She says, we used to have block parties all the time, and we just don't do that anymore. I said, well, we need to get back to doing that.
Right.
You know, even if you
Exactly.
just have a social afternoon for people to come over to your house, you know?
Right.
Well, I want to get your take on what was said here in LinkedIn. Suppose prior do not act or behavior randomly, and I bet you know who said that, Carla.
Suppose prior do not act.
Is that bad English?
Randomly.
I'm not too sure if I understand what it's trying to say.
Yeah, I know who it is.
Yeah, that's Brian.
That sounds like Brian, yeah.
Yeah.
He's incognito there.
Who's Brian?
So suppose that they don't act randomly, and that's what he's getting at.
As opposed to what? I don't understand the
Now,
question.
I don't know. I would love Brian to be on the call, so we.
Here he is. Suppose people do not act or behave randomly. Most people do act randomly. What would be the alternative to randomly?
Well,
Predictably.
yeah. Well, or they think about their actions before they do them. So
I
imagine
think
that.
maybe what he's saying is that people can be predictable. People tend to, based on the way that they act appropriately to how they are. People do not act randomly, right? They're predictable based on your perceptions of them, maybe, or based on.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with that statement, because I think there's a lot of people who don't think ahead of time.
You know what? I don't think that people are predictable.
I don't think so either.
Just to an ultimate, because the minute I start to think that they're going to reply in a certain way, they're going to blow it out of the water and be totally off the wall. So I don't put anything past anybody.
They behave 100% how situations.
They behave 100% how situations occur to them.
Well, yeah, they're gonna interpret a particular situation the way that they see it,
Right.
not necessarily
It's
the
their
way I
perception.
see it.
Their
It's their
perception of
perception.
how they
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
And that's an important fact there, important information there is people can be very predictable, but some people are not as predictable. But I think the more you know someone, the more predictable they are.
Good point.
Because you would
So-
know them enough to where you could possibly anticipate how they're going to reply.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, the more you know someone, the more you know. In most situations, I think there's always some situations that might surprise you, but if you know someone real well, you're gonna, I'll go back to that individual I worked with that was very negative. And I knew in every situation that was brought to that person that they were gonna respond a certain way because I could read how they would perceive it. And so once I learned that about the individual, I was able to change the way I communicated to that individual to change the way that they responded. It wasn't them changing per se, it was me changing in how the information was presented to them. And so sometimes instead of coming in and saying, I have this situation and we need to fix it right now, it was given to them in little bites. Instead of going into their office, when they would pass by my office, I would say, hey, you got a second? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And hey, I need your help, instead of me going in there and saying, we need to fix it. This is the way we need to do it. This individual had to be made to think that it was their idea.
Mm-hmm.
You're collaborating.
Well, yeah, we're collaborating, but I was able to read that individual over time after learning about them and building that relationship. I knew how they would respond best by how I gave them the information that I needed to give them. So.
Now, I like this quote a lot.
Yes. Right, because all of our perceptions are different.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that statement right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Brian for you. So, Brian, I know you're watching. We need to have you on these calls more often again, sir.
Yep.
Both you and Graham. Graham, I know if you're watching, we love
that's
to
because
have
you got a dinner riding on that one, Chris. We were trying to get Graham on the call from the UK one time, and I said, Graham, come on, you got to get online. If you get online and you participate, I'll send Chris a gift card to Texas Roadhouse to go eat dinner.
And did it work?
No, he didn't get on.
Yeah.
Better double it.
But the option's still open.
Yeah,
I think that was there. Before I went to Florida, and we were actually going to do lunch together.
Yeah, we did.
I ended up paying anyway.
Yeah. So what would be the call to action, everyone? What would be the call that we need to do?
So my call to action is be the leader of hope and rise above the darkness to become a brighter leader for tomorrow.
I'm going to write my book using my 7 tenets here, or at least start it. Because, I mean, I think if you look at it, I think there's 7 good tenets. Because if you took, like, hope and empathy, put those 2 words together, there's a lot to be discussed. Hope and realism, a lot to be discussed. Hope and humor, a lot to be discussed. So, honestly, I think I'm going to put these up on my wall and share them as much as I can, because I think it was pretty cool. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to pat myself on the back.
That's okay. You're allowed. You're allowed. I want to see a blog off of it. That'd be great.
All right.
For me, I think the call to action would be the light and continue to build those relationships.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I greatly appreciate every single one of you. And Patrick, yesterday's questions were phenomenal. Thank you
Great.
so much, sir. That was just
Sure.
great. But we got to go because we got to do another call because things are growing here at Bringing Men Together. So we're have to take another call because we got someone who wants to join the organization. So we got to get going on that call. But again, as always, thank you, Carla, for facilitating this great conversation again. And John C. Maxwell, if you hear us, we would love to have you on the show. All right. So again, Lisa, Patrick, Carla, I greatly appreciate you facilitating this. It was another great and engaging conversation. And you guys have a great and awesome, terrific Thursday.
You as well.
We'll see
You
guys
too.
on
Thank you.
Wednesday.
All right. Bye.